So, you really need to listen to me. Um, I'm using here a very good document, infographic. You know, you can tell by the quality of an infographic a lot about the person who made it. I can always spot them when they're good. So this is a good one. What I want you to pay attention to is California. Think about California. Think about the other. Think about Colorado. Now, Colorado is a state. Um, Lake Chad, this immensely important water source for, four really large countries, um, including Chad, home of Hindu Umar Ibrahim and her pastoral Mboro tribe, whose indigenous ecological knowledge Hindu has taken to the world stage because anyone with half a wit listening to Hindu speak knows immediately, oh, she knows. So why mention Hindu? Well, look, this excellent infographic is a total catastrophe. So what it means for example, for Brazil, for the Brazilian Amazon, is that they've got to work a whole lot faster. They're not doing it. Brazil, I love you. I especially love you for dealing so well with Palestine. You're going to get a lot of slack from me. You're also going to get a lot of slack from me, Brazil, for being the country that most radically reduced your emissions. Because you did earlier in the century do exactly what everyone asked. You did. No one seems to acknowledge it but me. Let me just acknowledge it again. Early in the century, Brazil slashed deforestation in the Amazon. What was its most effective technique? Recognition of indigenous land rights, protection and enforcement, to some degree, of indigenous land rights. A return, albeit far too gradual and far too lenient, a return, though, of some kind, at least, to coexistence rather than rape as the model. So what do we think about it all? Now, when we look at that chart, that wonderful infographic, what do we see that should alarm us? Look, the ability of the Amazon rainforest to withstand deforestation was wildly exaggerated. The impact of the Amazon rainforest on California's drought, for example, was wildly understated. If you're not a global citizen in California, you are an enemy to your state. People die in wildfires because of you, if you're not a global citizen. PG&E gets away with murder. You realize, right? All the deadliest wildfires would never have happened. To date, if PG&E had maintained its equipment, instead of pretending to service its equipment and then taking the money allotted, for the revenue allotted for that purpose, and giving it right back to greedy shareholders. Now, when we say it's the rich, let's be as specific as scientifically possible. I am a big believer. Don't spread culpability any thinner than you absolutely have to. Try to find the really culpable people are the ones, right, who could wake up tomorrow and change it all and don't. We all know. I could tell you their names if I wanted. The thing is, what about you? What about you? What about you, affluent, whites-only leaders who just sit on your bottoms forever. What do you do with all that time is what I really wonder. Do you ever think? Do you ever talk to anyone whose life is not a mirror of your own? Besides one person, a sort of honorary affluent person I know, lives a poor life, craves recognition from a deserving elite, an elite one could be proud of belonging to. We don't have such an elite. I would live in shame if I pretended otherwise. Anyone should who pretends otherwise. We don't have an elite. We have the bottom of the barrel. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. It's an inverse relationship between the amount of humanity that a person has demonstrated in the conduct of their life to date and the degree to which we are willing to trust them with our power. Now, I say we, but I mean, none of that has anything to do with me. It does have a lot to do with one of my siblings. It has nothing to do with me, though. Nada. Zero zip. Zilch. We're not talking about some ideological question, right? Do you see an ideologue here? Do I look like I care at all? A damn about ideology? I don't. You know what I care about? I care about treating farm workers as if they were human beings. I care about not allowing myself or any other self with my complexion to just settle in as if it were some eternal verity that we should have people from whom we withhold legal personhood broiling outside in very hot temperatures hot enough to cause the kind of heat stress that takes years off your life without you having to be fully dressed the whole time you're working to protect you from being poisoned by the same indifference that doesn't see a problem and you not living to see the age of 50 due primarily now. Both the evidence and common sense tell us due primarily now to global warming, to prolonged exposure to heat stress. Not really a question anymore. It is way more devastating than pesticide poisoning. But it's the combination that take a word. Now, if you're, I like the guys. They're almost always amateurs like me. They're not, nobody's paying them a bunch of money. As soon as you're getting paid a bunch of money, oh God, there go the problems. I mean, it's just an endless list of compromises. I've never wanted to work for one of those NGOs. God. I mean, I'm sorry, but why would you? Why ever do something related to whether life on Earth will have a future, and then where, and then for how long? To people who are obviously, very fit to be inmates at Arkham Asylum in Gotham City if Batman would just round them up. So, to return to the infographic, you need to know that on the other side of the world, there's another rainforest, the Congo rainforest. Now, that graphic you're looking at shows us that the Amazon's ability to withstand deforestation, which is entirely dependent on the amount of global warming it has to contend with, yes, they're related. They're relative. I was almost going to say some hideous thing like relational. We keep making up these words as if the English language were not perfectly adequate to our predicament. Oh, it is. It's just that the affluent control its use. They really do, the poor things. They control everything. Are you aware of that? Are you? I don't think you are. I'm not talking about just Charles Koch, just Charles Koch can't live everywhere. How do you think California, California was going to have a local Green New Deal in Chico. How could it not? They'd just seen a whole town, a beautiful town, a town nestled in the redwoods. Beautiful. My God, Paradise, California was beautiful. My God. You know what else is beautiful, though? After that town burned to the ground, after 55 people didn't have time to escape, even with a fairly functional early warning system. It's just that in California, 149 million trees have died because we're in a global warming tape loop. And then the dead trees, right, from heat and lack of rainfall, and then opportunistic parasites, but they wouldn't have the parasites if it weren't for the lack of rain and the excess heat, right? It's a global warming tape loop. You can just say that. It's perfectly accurate. And we're seeing it already reproducing itself in the Arctic. Now, Arctic wildfires should have been the end of these IPCC reports. Because every report, God, the IPCC is so compromised. If fatal corruption, if you represented fatal corruption, where an institution simply can no longer serve its purpose, if you measured it, if you thought of a ship and you said, okay, how many holes have they punched in that ship with their torpedoes? There wouldn't be a ship, it would just be holes. That's how bad the IPCC is. That's how bad. I'm not exaggerating it. The question is, in effect, how bad is it? It's so bad that the only viable proposal for ending global warming quickly, right away, at the fastest possible speed, which absolutely requires something called sufficiency for all. You can't move enough people out of unsustainable ecocidal pursuits and into sustainable, caring, life-regenerating pursuits fast enough. You just can't. So you have to take away certain things that make the rule of money the most effective system of domination ever. Much more insidious than, the Soviet Union at its worst. The Soviet Union at its worst did not quite manage to threaten the entire globe with ecocide single-handedly. America did during the same time period. Exactly that. Let's be honest, we all know it. The things we all know, I could peel the paint off your walls, but I won't do it. I'm going to tell you, you better not discount what I tell you, because I am so much more informed and so much more honest and so much less hindered in my ability both to hear the truth and tell it. You don't listen to me, you're out of luck. You hear me? You're out of luck. You should listen.